From WDWNT, the worldwide leader in Disney Parks news, this is ParksCenter. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of ParksCenter. My name's Ben. I'll be hosting this whole thing for you. On the show with me tonight, I have Chris.
Howdy, howdy.
Nathan.
Greetings from the Sunshine State.
Rich.
Hello.
And Rob.
Hello.
All right, folks, with the introductions out of the way, let's move on to our first topic of the night. I wanted to start off talking about Toy Story Land, but apparently we're going to have to talk about my Disney experience crashing yet again. This is, I think, the third time in a month this has happened now, where my Disney experience has broken down, broke FastPass, reservations. This was a bit of a mess. Did anybody have any adverse effects from this personally?
Well, we were trying to make a dining reservation and couldn't. We're going to be in the world later this month, and we're going to go look at the various restaurants' menus and try to figure out where we wanted to go, and we couldn't. And the thing that I found interesting as a former IT guy is that it wasn't just Disney World. Apparently ESPN, Disneyland, some of the ancillary sites also were non-responsive for a good part of the day.
Yeah, what was wild is MoviePass also went down in the same 6-hour window. So I thought there was some sort of attack on my entertainment. No, I did go onto the page, and I think if there's a reason some of us don't like Stitch, it's simply because he shows up so much on the website because he's sort of
goodness
411 or whatever it is, 404 page. So, but nothing too bad. How long was it down, Ben? Do you know?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Just I don't believe the article listed because the article was posted when it went down. But I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour or two. If I'm not mistaken, does anybody know better than me?
Well, from our continued attempts at creating fast passes and dining, we couldn't do it at lunch and we couldn't do it at dinner, at least on the Disney site.
It's probably significantly longer.
Yeah, it was quite long actually, because we started trying to make some fast passes about mid-afternoon, and we also were trying to pull some photo pass pictures off of my Disney experience later in the evening, and it wasn't working then either. So it was pretty long. It wasn't just a simple 1 hour shutdown.
Is some of this now? You'd have to correct me. When did they do the big update for the Experience app, which I think has done a lot to solve some problems I have with the app? But how many shutdowns or have we seen since that update?
It's interesting. The date on the new app, the 412, is early June, like June 10th or 11th or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there may be a correlation now that you mention it.
That does seem to line up, doesn't it?
Number of downtimes in the new app. Interesting.
So it works better overall, but
when it crashes, it crashes harder.
Yeah, the Faustian bargain is that it still crashes or crashes more.
Well, if you're gonna do it, go big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So this has been happening enough, honestly, that I think people might actually start to distrust Disney's technology as a whole at this point. I've definitely gotten that feeling off of Twitter at this point, just taking a quick poke around there, that people seem to be a little, maybe Disney doesn't really have it together. Is this well-founded? Is this just them working out kinks and it happens to be kind of explosive?
I mean, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm probably the most forgiving person when it comes to Disney, of just shaking my head and going, that's okay. It's still Disney. We're still having a good time. But there is nothing more defeating than being in the parks or trying to make these reservations, and all of it bundled into that one app just makes you feel like completely helpless. I'll go back and forth from the app to the online to try to make sure that it's not the app that's the problem. It's just really super frustrating. So, for me as a huge Disney fan, I lose a lot of faith in the product.
I mean, Disney has a terrible history when it comes to technology. So, I mean, you go all the way back to go.com, one of Eisner's biggest follies. Technology has never been something they've been good at, and it concerns me when you think about the streaming service coming, I guess is what I'm saying. But we'll see.
That's a good point. Speaking of Disney and technology, since we can't get one app working, let's put out a second. Disney has gone and put out the Disney Parks Play app, which is, I unfortunately don't have any screenshots to pull up for it, but it is an app essentially that lets you play games while you're in lines, lets you track, check in at attractions, get achievements for doing rides, kind of just a companion app for the parks. I haven't had the chance to use it yet. I think a couple people here have.
Yeah, actually, we had a chance to try it out. We were playing the Disney Play app all during our 2-hour and 10-minute wait on Slinky Dog Dash last week. So it kind of helped that to go through. And I think that's the main point of the app, is that people have an alternative as opposed to just sitting there and staring. Mind you, it was great to see the queue, and there's lots of other things to do, but we made an intentional choice to open the Play app, and amongst the family, we had all the kids surrounding, did some of the games back and forth. And so I think overall it was a success as far as what its original intention was. The only issue I had is that then now we formed a family circle, and we're all staring at this small screen the entire time, at the same time trying to move the queue forward. So it also had its side effects, I should say.
You know,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I talked to one of the marketing people about it, and she made a good point of, and you see it with my family, all families, that everybody's on their own devices having an individual experience, and that what this Play app does is it encourages you to have a group experience in the queue with things that are happening around you, ask Disney trivia, things like that. So I think from that standpoint, it sort of is like the best of the two evils, so the lesser of the two evils. But for us, it was pretty cool to be able to try it out. It came out, I think, a day or two earlier than it was supposed to, probably because they wanted to impress the media that was there and show it off a little bit. But it's very incomplete, and to me, that's I'm kind of excited about it, but it's incomplete. I sort of would like to see it integrated more with my Disney experience, but at the same time, not because of the stability issues. There's a lot of cool things that I like about it, but like the trivia questions, there aren't many. So, I went through them, and then later my wife downloaded the app and she was going through them, and she knew all the answers because she had heard me talking about them. So I think it needs to be a little bit more completed and deeper, and hopefully it will get there. But right now it's only got 2 parks loaded on it. So.
And that's one thing I was concerned about as well, is that the app, when you're not in the parks, that's the only thing you can do is play trivia. So I have a feeling that people kind of run through the trivia while they're out, and when they get to the parks, that's one option that they've already, like you said, they've already gone through the questions.
Well, Chris, I think I disagree with you, because I was at home and was able to play some of the games.
Oh, were you?
You literally just have to hit "I'm in the queue." You can just light the app and you can play pretty much everything besides achievements.
It was funny because we were actually in the line for Alien Swirling Saucers, and we tried to play the game for Slinky Dog Dash, and they kept telling us we had to be physically in the queue. And I'm thinking, wow, we're close enough. I would think we'd be able to fool the app, but we didn't have a way to bypass it, at least not that I could see.
Well, I was in Swirling Saucers, and it told me I wasn't in any queue, and I had Bluetooth running and everything. So there's some issues. I think overall this app, for me, is kind of a disappointment. I was really thinking they were going to incorporate some AR and do some really interesting material. And what you sort of get is, I think all 4 parks have stuff on them, but at the same time, Epcot is it's like they sat down there like, all right, we got Epcot. What are we going to put on Epcot? And then they basically went, well, we'll just put Agent P on Epcot and call it a day. I mean, that's literally all that's really on
and music.
there.
That's about it. Yeah.
And the music, but the music is all. I mean, it's not new.
It's stuff I already have on my playlist on my phone as it is.
Right, and maybe for the more casual fan, like, that's cool. But also, it's like listening to music in the queue that already has music. Like, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the accessibility of some of this stuff is, but we'll see what they do.
But I just wanted to say, it seems like we're the beta testers for this one, because I agree that it seems incomplete. And talking about MDX crashing, the app has stopped 3 times now on my Android phone when trying to play it. So it still needs some work. But I like the look. I will say the design and the artistic aesthetic, I think, is kind of cool.
The maps are gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. Speaking of kind of just beta testing stuff, no, I'm sure they've tested the rides thoroughly. So Toy Story Land, we've got a 2-parter on this one, starting off talking about mainly about the attractions in Toy Story Land. So Slinky Dog Dash, Alien Swirling Saucers, the little bit of reimagining that's occurred for Toy Story Mania. Who's been there? What do you think?
Well, I was there. I think a couple of us have been there, and I was not fortunate enough to go on Slinky Dog. I know Chris was, so he'll have something to say about that. Um, Swirling Saucers, I think the queue is pretty fun. I think it's not as immersive as what I'm told it will be later on. And it's a pretty short ride, so I wouldn't wait super long, but it's, man, they're playing some real jams on that ride. It's kind of fun, and it really is the only ride type of its kind of um version at Disney World. They don't have anything like that. They have Mater over at Disneyland area, but this is the only one we have. So it's nice if you've experienced a lot of stuff before, that there's at least something here that's kind of new. Um, and I loved the queue for Toy Story Mania. It really brought something extra to the ride, and there's a lot. It feels more lush when you enter and exit. You're entering Toy Story Land. It feels more connected with everything, which I think is really cool.
I think they've done a really good job. I think just walking into the area at first, we're a little apprehensive about how things were going to go. But as you walk in, it's the great theming. You walk in right past Woody, and immediately you see Slinky Dog coming at you, and you get to actually see the ride from the side. We were, I don't know if you were say lucky enough or crazy enough to get into the queues on opening day. There was a 210-minute wait, I believe, posted, and we waited just over 120. To get on the ride. Might not do that as an annual pass holder forever, but hey, for opening day, we'll do it. I was pleasantly surprised with Slinky Dog Dash. It was a lot higher than I was expecting it to be. And I think with the effect of there not being anything on either side of your track, it actually gives the idea of higher elevation and a little bit of thrill that I wasn't expecting. Everyone on the coast and everybody in my family was yelling and having a great time on it. Great theming effects. And the fact that it stops halfway through and backs up like you would actually pull back a toy in a pullback spring-loaded like game was just is an excellent thing. And I have to say, when you guys go during the day, but go back at night, because it's a completely different area at night, and it's just something to behold with all the lights on.
Yeah, and we rode Slinky Dog Dash as well, and I tried to keep my family in the dark about what was going to happen with the second hill. And to me, I think it is a great attraction. I mean, I know I was expecting Barnstormer, and what I got was so much better. I think the theming's great. I know that we've talked, or you guys have talked about, the lack of like some of the stuff they backed out of the project, but I think there's so much to look at on the coaster that I don't think it needed that extra scene at the end. I could be wrong, but I mean, I feel like there was so much to see and do on Slinky Dog that I think it's going to be repeatable over and over again. But who knows how long you'll have to wait in a month or two.
We'll see how sightlines are affected too. I think that's something that we don't fully know yet, because from what I hear, Dash is a great way to look at Star Wars. What I don't want to see is a galaxy theme, like, oh, there goes Slinky Dog ship, or what am I supposed to think when I'm in the middle of Star Wars when I see Slinky Dog? So I'm curious how they're going to sort of mask some of that later on. Right now, I think they're giving us an opportunity to kind of tease us and letting us see more than we'll actually see later on once Galaxy's Edge opens. But
with Galaxy Edge, that's a great point, is that right now there is, as I would say, an obscene view. And I mean, maybe that's more theming, but an obscene view of Galaxy's Edge, the construction that's going on. It is really, I mean, talk about sightlines, that takes you out of it completely. I don't understand, when they can do these huge 3-story scrims on Main Street, why they couldn't have done some kind of a scrim across the back, unless they were just trying to, like you said, tease Star Wars Land. But it just seems like they should have masked that a little bit better.
Like Star Wars Land needs teased.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah.
People don't know about it. You need to get the word out.
Speaking of how they could have themed the land a little bit, that's the entirety of our next topic. So there have been, I'll say, conflicting opinions on the theme of the land and whether or not people are kind of on board with it, how immersive it is, how it feels to be there. It seems a little loose to me as someone who hasn't been there. But again, I want to defer to the people who have actually seen this and been there in person. What are your thoughts about this, honestly?
The theming works, but the theming also works as long as you're okay with the idea that it's not very cohesive. So the theming for the Toy Story Mania is now like you're going into a box that's a playset for it, but that playset for some reason has all the characters that are owned by I'm forgetting her name now. The caretaker post Andy. I'm just totally blanking.
Bonnie?
Bonnie, right. So you have Bonnie's toys that are sort of a part of that, but technically this is Andy's backyard, and Rex seems a little small in statue form, and you have a few animatronics, but you have other ones that aren't moving. So is that like what's it's hard to have theming when you have these statues that represent characters that when people are around literally turn into statues. So I don't know. I think I'm probably nitpicking. I think overall the experience, the aesthetic is a lot of fun. But there's sometimes you're just like, well, I don't know how this all sort of connects necessarily.
Going with my family and them being very casual Disney fans in comparison to the mania that I have, they, loved it. They loved every little detail. That there were so many fine details in it. They were really impressed with the whole thing. I don't think they were looking for theming. I think they were just wowed by what they saw. But I will agree with you. I mean, I think what popped into my head was we have this huge Woody statue. When Woody walks through the land as a meet and greet, that looks odd. That you've told us that's Woody as a toy, but now here he is walking around. There are some inconsistencies, but I think again, to the casual fan, they're going to be very impressed with the colors, with the details, and the overall look of the land is good. But I think we're obviously going to be a little bit more picky.
But it's all those small things that happen as you walk through the land that kind of overlap, and like you said, for the casual guest, they're not going to care when they're looking at the fact that they're sitting on benches made out of popsicle sticks. That as they're waiting in line to get something at Woody's lunchbox, there's a giant cooties set from the old game. There's even the blocks at the restrooms. The boys and the girls side are spelled out with wooden blocks with the letters. There's a lot of small details that even as you walk through, you find more and more. And I think overall, it's just wonderfully done. I will say that one thing that my family did bring up, that they weren't looking for anything. They weren't looking to find something wrong. My son did turn to me at one point and goes, "Hey, so why are the little green army men the same size as Woody and Jesse and Buzz? Because in toy form they should be smaller." And it kind of blew me away that they were even looking to that point. So there is a little bit of it. I was thinking of a string to pull at it. I think overall it's still a lot to behold.
And certainly the most thematic thing at Hollywood Studios as a land. There's certainly rides that I think are themed excellently. But as a land, it's definitely very specific. It does envelop very well for the most part.
Yeah, that's a solid way to end this. Moving into a whole new world of Disney. The World of Disney store in downtown Disney recently got remodeled. I honestly had relatively fond memories of the old look and feel, and this, to me, it feels a little industrial. I'm not a fan. I'll be honest. It is just a shop. I'm not going to be that upset about a shop, but it was kind of nice before. What do other people think about this?
Well, I think it looks a lot cleaner. The lines and everything is a lot simpler overall. And there's a lot more architectural details that is not kind of overimposed by the large sculptures that you may see over the ceilings. There's been a lot of backlash over the loss of those items that people have gotten used to over the years. But I will say this: 2 points I wanted to make is one, it's not done. There's lots of things everywhere that says, this is just a rollout. Look for it. We're going to have more coming. And also, in talks with some people within cast members, saying there's going to be a lot of projections and a lot of interactions that are yet to be even put into the areas that's already opened up. So I'm really looking forward to see, and kind of holding my reservations on it until I see what the final product's going to be.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
I was just going to say that from the architectural aesthetic, yes, it was fun to go shopping there with all of the details that used to be in the store, but it was crowded and the crowd flow was not optimized. It was kind of a mess. The exterior of the building has always been kind of this arts and craftsman style architecturally. Now the inside sort of reflects that instead of being the whimsy of Disney, which I think we miss. But now it seems a little bit more holistic. I don't know. It's a store. So for me, if it makes it easier and less stressful and a better experience to shop, then I like it.
I think it also falls in line with the theming of Disney Springs now. That's one of the things where it looked very
Agreed.
different. Same thing with Once Upon a Toy with the genie coming out of the chimney. I mean, that's not part of what Disney Springs is now. So it makes sense that they would change it to more, as you said, the arts and crafts style of design. So I think it fits better with Disney Springs. I am on board with also missing the big, hanging Goofy in the middle of the store. But it does look clean, and if it makes it easier to grab your stuff and get out, then like you said, it is a store.
I think the key here is that one of the big problems with the old store is they would put a big old statue of something, right? And it was the hot new ticket, or maybe not even a hot new ticket, but let's say Alice in Wonderland or something. And then over time, that property is not as loved or something, right? And so it just doesn't click with people like it did the last generation or things of that nature. I think of all of the Disney stores I've been through in malls in America, right? Like having these, oh yeah, I forgot about that, or oh, that's a fantastic statue. The thing about this, even right now, what you see is like a lot of things are in like projections, supposedly, but pictures on the walls. These things are easily interchanged out with new stuff. And so if there's a new popular thing, they can sort of add projections and add certain things, and artwork, a lot of drawed concept art. And I think that's great. I think that makes it a thing that can refresh a lot better. And if you're going to be sort of one of the two staple stores in America for Disney products, especially park stuff, you need to have that interchangeability.
Yeah, and speaking of projections, the next topic here, Disney has come out with a new patent. It seems they do this almost every other week at this point. Technology to create Force ghosts and holograms for Galaxy's Edge. Now, granted, this is a lot of patent lingo and patent pictures, so not exactly the most exciting thing. But the end application for this is that we very much might be getting things that look like Leia's projection pictured there. I'm kind of excited to see where this is going. What other people think about this? Are there applications outside of Galaxy's Edge for this kind of stuff, or maybe that's the only place we're going to see this?
I mean,
what's coming?
It's digital's Pepper's Ghost. In many ways, they've done this sort of stuff in Haunted Mansion and that sort of stuff before. I feel like that's the analog version. We're going to get this digital sort of variation on that. I don't think it needs to be anywhere else besides that, but I think we might see it in some Marvel Land stuff for like Doctor Strange and holograms and even Stark Expo material or whatever. Who knows? I love it. I'm excited for it. I think it's sort of an evolution of something they already do a little bit, but we'll see.
That's a pretty solid point. I didn't think about that, but with all the Marvel characters and stuff, you could definitely use the same kind of technology there. Gosh, even for just something as simple as like I'm thinking maybe some cast member interacting with like a touch screen that's like a Minority Report style floating in space screen. That like all the actions are pre-programmed and everything like that, but the illusion would be this is an actual floating in space UI that you could tap buttons and slide things and all this great stuff would happen.
I think is cool is that it's another tool in the toolbox for the Imagineer. I think when probably projection mapping came out, I doubt that any of us, the first thing we thought was, oh, they'll make, animated faces on the animatronics. And so I think that as they roll out new technology like this, it's just one more tool, one more opportunity that they're going to have. But I think, to your point, Marvel and Star Wars seem like an easy grab for both of these.
Do holograms allow us to do more stuff for nighttime spectaculars and things of that nature? Another way to project characters.
Could they replace audio animatronics like I forget who said it, but another tool in the toolbox, so that if we wanted to change out the pirates, for example, and exchange this generation's pirates with the next generation's pirates, it would be easier to do that with a projection-based system rather than a physical animatronics-based system. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't have to be a techie sci-fi application. It could be a very mundane application that we just can't think of right now.
That's a totally fair point. And the other thing, speaking of removing animatronics, these stuntronics, pardon the UI problems, this is really cool. So I saw this this video. Let me start this up here. I might have to jump around a bit in this video, but essentially, Disney has made animatronics that can do acrobatics. Let's get to the part where it's actually working. Oh, come on, buffering. So
can I tell you the first
thing
the first thing I think of is like I love this idea and it's very cool, but like just the Mr. Potato Head animatronic and trying to do little things. It feels like this is, like just taking his ear off and putting it back in. And now you're talking about throwing a robot, 100 feet. So, I mean, I think it's great, but I would doubt that it's,
well, the thing
super close.
The thing is also, though, like subtlety is always much harder in robotics than grand gestures in many ways. And I think if it's a program thing that sort of knows where to position, we never really see it land by itself, do that superhero landing thing, which I'm sure they're going to figure out. But there's certain applications for stunt shows. See, I think people always think of like Iron Man and like, oh, this will be good for characters that have masks or things. But I think in certain ways they can even make this work where what would be very difficult for a stunt person to do or very dangerous for a stunt person to do multiple times a day, they can have an animatronic. I think sometimes we'll not even know the difference, right? Because it's kind of off in the distance, and we'll see them do it. So
sometimes
I think there's a lot of potential.
Places are the best places to use high tech applications, so you don't even notice or you can't even tell. I have to say, the first, and maybe being in Massachusetts, the first thing I thought of was Boston Dynamics and Atlas and Spot and all of their robots that do these very sort of same things, but at a much higher scale.
Well, all I can say now is, now that we've seen this sort of application being done, is it's going to make me question every time I see Tinkerbell come off the castle now, is whether or not what am I really looking at? Is it really Tink, or have they slipped somebody in there that looks a lot like Tink? So I think there's a lot of applications, and some of the things they've done from the Pixar shows over in Disneyland, I see there's a lot of applications for those types of shows.
There's an obvious comment in there about quote unquote really Tink in the first place, but can you really tell if it's really Tink or really somebody pretending to be Tink or really something pretending to be somebody pretending to be Tink?
Such complexity at the end of the show.
Wow.
Way deep.
That is going to take us all the way through to the end of the show, I'll say. Thank you, folks, for joining us for another edition of ParksCenter. If you're watching this live, you're watching it on Sunday. We usually record on Wednesdays, Wednesday night at 9 p.m. I will say that this coming Wednesday, we're probably going to have something a little bit different. I'm not going to say quite what yet because it is still a little up in the air, but I will say it'll be something fun, and you will see it Wednesday night, 9 p.m. I'll say the title, and I'll leave it at that. ParksCenter versus. We'll leave it there for now.
Does that mean we'll be singing?
No, maybe it might. If things go poorly, that's the no. If you are listening to this live, please do stay tuned. We're going to have our post-show discussion. This is normally something we do for Wigs only, but as part of our 11-hour show for our 11th anniversary at WDWNT, we'll open this up to everyone to hear. And coming up later tonight at 9 p.m., you can stay tuned for one night only, the WDW News Tonight reunion show. Stay tuned for that, for all the Disney news, fun, and chaos in a way only we can bring you. And on that note, I am going to close the show all out. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week.
Good night.